Have you ever wondered what can you do with your Airbnb property if you are no longer able to do Airbnb with it? The reality is when you are getting into the short-term rental business, especially if you are buying the property, you should never buy a property if it only makes sense with Airbnb. You should always have multiple exit strategies. In fact, that property should make sense and pencil out if you did long-term rentals with it, and Airbnb should be a cherry on top. I have a story where I had a experience pertaining to what I'm about to share. So I started my short-term rental business in March of 2017 with properties that I already owned. And then in 2019, I ventured into the arbitrage model where I started renting properties from landlords. Long story short, I got a property on a 12-month lease in September, October-ish of 2019. And about 6 months into my lease, in the middle of the pandemic, the city one day to the next says, hey, no more short-term rentals. And here I am 6 months into my lease. I was making about $3,000 a month in net cash flow, but guess what? Now I can't do Airbnb. So here's what I did. The property is an amazing, beautiful 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom craftsman home in a really good area in Los Angeles County. And what I did is I listed the property on Zillow as a long-term rental. Hey, I'm seeking a tenant for 12 months. Who wants to live in the property. The property is already furnished, and I had the property under contract at $3,500 a month. I was able to then rent it at $4,000 a month. Now the interesting part is it's been 3 years since that tenant moved in, and guess what? They are still living there today. So for the last 3 years, I continue to make $500 a month from a long-term tenant. So I'm doing arbitrage on a long-term tenant. Who wouldn't take $500 a month? It's like free money. There's absolutely nothing to do. I think we talk to the tenant maybe once or twice a year. So the reason I was able to make that work is because I had long-term strategy as a backup, right? And this is why it's so important to pay fair market rent, because if I was overpaying for that property, I might be losing money today, or I probably would have just exited out of the lease. So if you're buying a piece of real estate, you always want to make sure that property pencils in with other strategies and not just Airbnb, because although I love Airbnb, I'm a big fan of it, I do believe they're going to be here for a really long time. And if they get replaced by something, it's only because that something is going to be better than what this is today. But you never know. What if they change a regulation or something? Whatever it is in your city, in your area, you always want to have a backup strategy. So of course, I just mentioned you could do a long-term rental as a backup strategy. Pretty straightforward, right? The property's already furnished, you have decor, amazing photography. Depending on your area, you might be able to charge an extra $100 to, who knows, maybe $1,000 more per month, because you already put $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 into furniture, appliances, decor, supplies, photography. And so now it's a much better asset than when it's just plain. And you never know, you might attract a nurse, somebody in the medical field, a corporate housing client, a relocation company, a government booking, someone who might book your property for 3, 6, 12 months at a time at a premium because of how the property looks and how it's marketed. So again, you have long-term rentals as a strategy, and you also have midterm rentals as a strategy as well, which midterm rentals are 30-day plus bookings. And the beauty about midterm rentals is it doesn't matter what the regulation is, because short-term rental regulations only impact properties that are booked for less than 30 days at a time, like 2 days, 3 days, up until 29 days. But anything 30 days or more is no longer impacted by short-term rental regulation. So this is a great way that you guys can pivot. The good thing is you can still list your properties on Airbnb, but you can set up a 30-day minimum. So people can only book it in 30-day plus increments, but nothing less than 30 days. And then of course you can list it on websites like Furnish Finder, Peerspace, and many others out there. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and if you haven't already, make sure you guys hit that like button. Remember guys, always, always, always have multiple exit strategies when you get into the Airbnb business. The Airbnb business shouldn't be the only thing that works, because you're going to set yourself up potentially for, not as much success. Airbnb should be the cherry on top. And again, one of the most important things is you only want to launch in cities where you can obtain a permit. This decreases the chances of there being a regulation change that will keep you from operating by just only going into cities where you can get a permit. Because think about it, if you go into a city where it's a gray area, what does that mean? A gray area is a city where technically they're not issuing permits, but you don't really need it. There isn't really a regulation. But what if a year from now they implement a regulation that was never there before, and that could cause drastic changes? But whenever there is already a regulation in place and they make modifications to it, they're typically very minor and will hardly ever create any negative impact. So that being said, don't forget to like this video. Make sure you guys follow me on Instagram where I post every single day, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.